This is NHK Newsline, I'm Kaniko Sakno. A coronavirus vaccine shortage in India is forcing some of the largest cities to delay their expanded inoculation programs. It comes amid desperate times for the country's medical system due to a relentless wave of infections. The government plans to start giving shots to all people aged 18 and above starting Saturday. People aged 45 and above are already eligible. The expanded rollout adds 600 million more, but some municipalities say they're unable to vaccinate the wider group.
We train thousands of our healthcare workers and doctors, etc., to start this mega vaccination campaign, but there is no vaccine with us.
Medicines and oxygen are also in critically short supply. On Saturday, new cases reported in the country topped 400,000 for the first time. Over 3,500 people died. Local media say crematoriums in New Delhi are overwhelmed, forcing people to set up funeral pyres in parking lots and riverside areas. US officials will restrict travel from India as coronavirus infections rampage through the country. Concerns are rising over more transmissible strains of the virus. President Joe Biden signed a proclamation saying the US will suspend entry for non-American citizens who visited India within the previous 14 days. The measure, with some exceptions, is due to take effect on Tuesday. The proclamation says the magnitude and scope of the COVID-19 pandemic in India is surging. It quotes advice from the US Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, which says variant strains in India have characteristics of concern, which may make them more easily transmitted and have the potential for reduced protection afforded by some vaccines. The US has imposed similar restrictions for travellers from China, European countries and elsewhere, citing coronavirus outbreaks in those nations.
We have a responsibility as the United States, in particular as it relates to the people that we have partnered with over the years, to step up when people are in a time of need.
Vice President Kamala Harris says the US is sending aid to India, including medical oxygen. The World Health Organization has listed for emergency use the COVID-19 vaccine produced by US pharmaceutical company Moderna. The listing on Friday means the product can be distributed through the COVAX facility, an international framework to ensure the equitable sharing of COVID-19 vaccines. The scheme includes vaccines from Pfizer-BioNTech, AstraZeneca-Oxford and Johnson & Johnson. COVAX aims to provide more than 300 million doses to 145 countries and regions by the end of June. However, inoculation supplies are being hampered by soaring infections in India, which is a major producer of vaccines, including the one from AstraZeneca. The number of vaccines distributed through COVAX by Thursday was a little over 49 million doses across 121 countries and regions. Some parts of the world are trying to ease back to normality as they pull away from the pandemic. Now one of California's most famous tourist attractions has reopened. Disneyland welcomed visitors on Friday. Customers headed into the venue and Disney California Adventure Park for the first time since March last year. State authorities have eased anti-coronavirus restrictions as the US vaccine rollout gathers pace.
It was really nice just to be back and around all the energy, and the cast members were so welcoming, so it was really nice.
But it's not quite business as usual. Only residents of California are allowed in, and capacity is limited to 25%. Visitors must wear masks, and parades have been put on hold. Universal Studios Hollywood and some other theme parks in the state reopened in April. UN Security Council members are echoing calls by ASEAN countries for a peaceful resolution to the situation in Myanmar. Council members held online talks on Friday. The discussion followed a meeting of leaders of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations last week. At that meeting, delegates issued a statement saying they agreed on a 5-point consensus for Myanmar. It remains unclear what was discussed in the Security Council talks, but afterward, the Council's current president, Vietnam, issued a press statement that said it was agreed on by all members. It emphasizes the importance of ASEAN's call for an immediate cessation of violence in Myanmar. It also calls for the immediate implementation of ASEAN's 5-point consensus as a step toward a peaceful outcome. Myanmar's military leaders have previously responded to the ASEAN statement by saying they'll consider it once their country is more stable. On Friday, they made another call for a one-month ceasefire.
The military will cease all operations for 1 month, starting May 1st.
The junta previously declared a ceasefire for the month of April, but the military has continued fighting against armed ethnic minority groups, and soldiers and police have continued attacking members of the public. A local human rights group says that as of Friday, the death toll had climbed to 759. The U.S. defense chief says his country wants to boost its alliances in the Indo-Pacific. That comes as China increases its military influence in the region.
So we'll be working even more closely with our friends in the Indo-Pacific and elsewhere, particularly in Europe, to strengthen a rules-based international order that favors the advance of freedom.
Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin was speaking at a military ceremony in Hawaii on Friday. He described America's allies as the foundation of our shared security. The event marked Admiral John Aquilino taking over the U.S. Indo-Pacific Command. Aquilino underlined the importance of the region, calling it the priority theater for the United States. President Joe Biden's administration has been reviewing the U.S. military presence around the world amid growing tensions with Beijing. Senior members of the Taliban have given an interview to NHK about the situation in Afghanistan. They say the U.S. is breaching the terms of a deal by taking longer than initially agreed to withdraw its forces. President Joe Biden's administration announced the start of the process on Thursday. It plans to pull all American troops out by September 11th. Biden's predecessor, Donald Trump, had agreed to complete the withdrawal by May 1st in a peace deal struck last year. High-ranking members of the Taliban told NHK the new plan violates the deal reached by Trump. They said they won't hesitate to take countermeasures against U.S. forces. They also suggested they could target NATO troops. The threat coincides with a car bombing on Friday that killed at least 21 and injured more than 90 others. The attack occurred south of the capital, Kabul. The blast was so powerful it destroyed nearby buildings, including a hospital and a guest house. No one claimed responsibility, but Afghanistan's presidential office is blaming the Taliban. Local officials say an earthquake that hit Japan's northeastern Tohoku region on Saturday morning left several people injured, but there are no reports of fatalities. The quake registered a magnitude of 6.8. The jolt at 10:27 a.m. had a depth of 51 kilometers, and its epicenter was off the coast of Miyagi Prefecture. Meteorological agency officials say there's no threat of tsunami. They're urging caution over aftershocks that could strike in the next week.
The risk of falling rocks and landslides in the area is rising. Please be on the alert for further seismic activity and changing weather conditions such as rainfall.
Checks on nuclear power plants around Tohoku have uncovered no abnormalities. They include the crippled Fukushima Daiichi plant, which was hit by the 2011 disaster. East Japan Railway temporarily suspended trains on the Tohoku Shinkansen line, but has now fully resumed service. Japan is in a week-long spring vacation, with Saturday the first of 5 consecutive holidays. And those were the main stories for this hour.